New comments today from Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, slamming the Republican mega bill and its heavy cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. This as the clock is ticking, with the Senate returning to work tomorrow and Republicans aiming to get the bill on President Trump's desk by the 4th of July.
The reality is this bill is about life and death. And for what? I mean, I guess that's the problem here for many of us, is that they're cutting Medicaid, throwing 15 million people off their health care in order to fund a tax cut for the super wealthy and for corporations. That is just fundamentally immoral. It's immoral and it's unethical. I don't understand why they're doing it, except that Donald Trump only really knows billionaires. He only knows corporate CEOs. And so his instructions to Republicans are reward them, help them, and no one else.
Don Calloway, Susan Del Percio, and Brendan Buck are back with me. So, Don, this is the message that Democrats have tried to stick with for this bill, that it's taking away health care and money away from low-income Americans to give it to billionaires. Is that message resonating?
I don't know if it's resonating, but I think, if I could step into my Susan Del Percio for a moment really quick and think about what will resonate. Trump put together a multiracial, multi-socioeconomic coalition. Nobody can take that away from him. And frankly, Democrats were blindsided by the coalition he was able to cobble together. But the question for the next day after the election that still persists today is, will you be included in the governance? And as a matter of fact, this bill shows that no, not only will you not be included in the governance, all the people he brought together to vote for him, but you'll actually be hurt from it. And Joni Ernst learned that the hard way by saying, everybody's got to die sometime. No, these members, these senators and these House members who have to take this very hard vote on this bill that will have extraordinary real life ramifications for people's kitchen tables, those folks are not Trump. Trump is somehow found himself to be immune, but those folks are not Trump. And the American people, not just Democrats, everybody who's hurt from the bill will have a real opportunity to hold them accountable. The thing that Trump has to his advantage is that all of us have a memory about the size of a TikTok reel. And so Democrats are going to have to hone in on those points about how this really harms kids. It pushes millions of kids into poverty for a few billionaires, and you have to hone in on those messages now and develop them consistently for almost another year and a half, and that's going to be hard to do. But this bill gives them a lot of ammo.
So, Susan, you've argued that Democrats probably can't stop Trump's mega bill, but they can focus on other targets, easier ones. You have written, quote, Trump loves to talk about what he wants to do. Why can't the Democrats use the same playbook? So expand on that. And wouldn't Medicaid be a popular issue on which to do that?
Well, Trump constantly says he's going to not cut Medicaid, and that message also gets through in other news outlets. So what I was speaking about were things like over Memorial Day weekend, for example, Alex, why aren't Democrats out at their airport saying it is unsafe due to Donald Trump? Stop worrying about, it happened under both administrations. Go out and do it. After every natural disaster, let's talk about Trump wanting to cut the weather services. There are things that Democrats can do that show that they are being proactive on what they want to get done instead of just fighting Donald Trump. You can go after those DOGE cuts. If you live in a district where a lot of people were fired, go out and talk to those people. They're about to cut Veteran Affairs with a huge layoffs. So why not go to those districts or go to the places where it's impacting now? The issue with this bill is people won't feel the impact for 2 years. Republicans will say, you're keeping your tax cut. So that happens today. But the cuts that are being discussed are far away. Talk about the things that impact people now.
All right, Don, you referenced Senator Joni Ernst. So, Brendan, we're going to go there with you because this weekend she seemed to double down on her flippant response to concerns Medicaid cuts would cause people to die. And she said, well, we're all going to die. Then she posted this apology on social media yesterday. Listen up.
I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well.
Yeah. Does this seem like a smart strategy or a snarky one? Because Republicans seem to feel like they can say anything. Is this going to backfire?
Well, you certainly can't apologize, and that's one of the GOP mantras they've learned from Donald Trump. You can never back down. So I think that's what's going on here. But how did she get herself in this situation in the first place? I think it speaks to how quickly this bill and policy has been coming together in a very slapdash way. And I think it's to why they're losing the argument in a lot of places. Look, there were a lot of things that they talked about doing on Medicaid, much more aggressive than what they were actually going to do, that they actually ended up doing. Real, like, budgetary cuts that they decided not to do. Where they landed was simply a work requirement where if you are able-bodied and you want us to pay for Medicaid for you, you need to go find a job, go to school, do something in the community. That's the policy. But they haven't even figured out how to say that or how to explain that. And that's how you end up with senators saying stuff like that. And why Chris Murphy gets away with saying what he did, which a lot of it was misleading. This isn't a tax cut for corporations. There's nothing to do with corporations in this bill. But those talking points that have been out there for so long, you have Republicans who don't even know how to talk about the only thing they're doing themselves. This is the only policy that they're working on this year, and they can't even explain what it is. So, of course, you're going to end up losing the conversation.
Can I just ask you quickly? I mean, you were former press secretary to Speaker Boehner. Do you think she cleared that video with somebody on her team? Or was that kind of like she put it out there and they're thinking, oh, come on, really?
No, look, there's no party control anymore. And look, yeah, she was somebody who ran for the leadership position to be their head of communications, and she lost that race. But I think it just kind of shows you that people aren't really worrying about, like, the broader universe. As we talked about before, the people you talk to in your little ecosystem and your information bubble, you're going to get a pass from them. And so they don't really work on reaching a broader audience. And this is what you end up with.
Don, can Democrats capitalize on GOP missteps like this?
We can, but it's going to have to be, it's very hard because it's going to have to be a coordinated message among several distinguished speakers. Right now, we don't have anybody with the singular magnitude of Donald Trump or that platform. So I'm really looking forward to Jim Clyburn playing another unifying senior role. As we saw, everybody was down at the fish fry, and he remains a singular figure, and he remains an important figure. And I think that Hakeem Jeffries has not yet grown into the role of someone who has command of all the Democratic coalition of ears around the country. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Jim Clyburn is going to help disseminate the same message across the broad Democratic coalition. But we can't do it because this bill is extraordinarily harmful to real people.
Okay. I'm out of time, which means ladies first next time, Susan. You go first. There you have it. You've heard it in here. Thank you.